Picking which character to play in a fighting game is not very hard. Do they have a cool move? Do they give you a boner? If they have one, you play them. If you have two, that's your new main. It's easy to fall in love with a character based on promise. You see gameplay and all the cool stuff they can do and think it'll be easy going from there. But sometimes a character is more than just how they look, and a surefire hit can end up being a flop. Today, we're talking about the biggest fighting game letdowns. Now, what separates a disappointing character from an out-and-out bad one? All disappointing characters are bad, and most bad ones are disappointing, but the key difference is expectation. A bad character, yeah, they just stink. They can't really do anything right, and it doesn't take long for you to realize you're not making any progress. A disappointing character is different. A disappointing character gives you that thread to tug on, some combo or move or property that you want to make work. The letdown is in how the promise of that cool character fails to live up to the reality of your opponent getting to hold a controller too. These characters are sports cars that don't come with their steering wheels. So, chances are 90% of you are here because of Kamen Rider, so let's give the people what they want. Gundam Battle Assault 2. I'm making you sweat it. Just like with Kamen Rider, Gundam is a total blind spot for me. But also like Kamen Rider, it's so big that it'd be impossible to not poke into my peripherals. That's right, I've seen Tequila Gundam, and if I don't mention him now, I fear I'll never get the chance. It's an institution in Japan. Every mecha show shares DNA with Gundam, and plenty of series outside of the genre still take bits and pieces. The Gundam itself, the original one from Mobile Suit Gundam, is one of the most recognizable images to come out of Japan, and any big humanoid robot is called a Gundam. It's so popular it became a synonym for what it is. Along with the anime, the manga, and the ultra-popular model kits, Gundam has also had a decades-long presence in the world of video games, starting all the way back in 1983, predating the releases of Super Mario Bros. And The Legend of Zelda. You've got the PS2 games like Federation vs. Zeon and vs. Zeta Gundam, the Dynasty Warriors Gundam series, the team-based shooter Gundam Evolution. Why do I even try?! What we're talking about, though, is back from the PS1 era with Gundam Battle Assault 2, developed by Natsume and published by Bandai Namco. This game's actually a really interesting footnote in Gundam history. It's the third game released in the Battle Master trilogy, with the first game remaining Japan exclusive. And Battle Assault 2 was actually made to capitalize on Gundam's popularity in the 2000s as a part of the Toonami block in America. The game was made for Americans and even released first in America, 3 months before its Japanese release. The third Battle Assault game would even be an American exclusive, the only ever Gundam game to never get a Japanese release. We're open to a hostage trade. Battle Assault 2 might be the middle child, but it's easily the fan favorite of the Battle Assaults, selling nearly 7 times the copies of the original and earning a dedicated player base to this day. Its art style is absolutely gorgeous, using layered pixel art to let every bit of the Gundam move freely while still being hyper-detailed. For a series with such complex designs, nailing them so well and making them look so good in motion was a massive achievement. The game is a super fun time that's really easy to pick up. You have your 4 basic attacks, as well as an air dash. At the cost of some boost meter, you can do a super jump to make for an easy approach, combo extension, or to chase a fleeing opponent. The game strives to be a game for Gundam fans and doesn't sacrifice that just to make sure every character is as good as the others. Bigger, flashier characters are often going to be better than Ball. And when it comes to big and flashy, there's only one real option. The game covers the Gundam series leading up to Wing, and among the roster is 6 different bosses used during the game's story mode. Of the 6, 3 are outright banned from competitive play, with Psycho, Dark, and Epion being way too strong for normal play. The remaining bosses aren't slouches though, like Hydra's near total immunity to zoning and projectiles thanks to his EMF shield. or Nue Zale being a massive, overwhelming wall. The last boss, though, has something the other 5 wish they had: name value. Big motherfucking Zam. A lot of you are probably in the same boat as me. You don't know anything about Gundam, but you know Big Zam. As far as the series goes, he's one of the most iconic, non-standard armor designs, and he stands out all the more when you actually pick him. Tied with Nue Zale for the biggest character in the game, Big Zam is terrifying to look at. Most of the other armors in the game don't come up to his knees. He looks more like a location than a character. And he's happy to throw that weight around. Have you ever seen a character with a hitbox on their walk? Or seen that walk do half their health with one stomp? Big Zam has a nearly 200% increase on his base damage compared to the rest of the roster. Single kicks from Big Zam do as much as some characters' super moves. There's no denying that Big Zam is the game's biggest damage dealer. Thanks to his size, Big Zam also gets to attack from absurd distances. Full-screen normals and stomps that hit from starting position are standard on Big Zam. He's also not at a loss for projectiles to go along with his physical attacks. Due to his lack of arms, Big Zam's light and heavy punches are replaced with energy shots that either hit directly in front of him or above him, as well as a special that shoots out homing missiles that do just as much damage as those kicks. The real draw to Big Zam, though, is his Mega Special, a ginormous beam that, if it lands, will melt away an entire health bar. The only thing that can survive a shot like that is another Big Zam. On top of a massive multiplier on his damage, Big Zam gets a huge defensive buff that leaves most attacks barely scratching him. 25% damage taken off of any move means it's going to take a long time to take down Big Zam. As if all those defenses weren't enough, Big Zam has always active, resourceless, unbreakable super armor. The only way to make Big Zam flinch for even a second is when he loses one of his 4 health bars. In a game where 2 or 3 is standard, that means Big Zam gets to fight for even longer with that damage debuff. With all of those advantages, Big Zam comes together to be arguably the worst character in the game. Yeah, even with all those advantages and all those traits in his corner, Big Zam ends up being significantly worse than even generic grunts like Denim Zaku and Ball. He's so bad that you bookend the tier list with boss characters. Psycho, Dark, and Epion spitting down from band tier to see if they can hit Big Zam all the way at the bottom. As for what makes him so bad, a lot of people have probably already guessed it, but the big problem with Big Zam is how how big he is. Zam's size is a great asset for landing those high damage attacks, but the truth is that it's a massive hindrance, more than it actually helps him. Big Zam's size comes with the consequence of being the slowest character in the game. If you're looking for Big Zam poke options, your best bet is this little soccer knee. Only really good if the opponent is right up in front of him, and even then it's not very fast. Besides that, Zam's attacks all have unbelievably long startups. Countable seconds of delay between input and throwing the attack. Not frames, seconds! An opponent aware of what year it is will have no problems dodging an attack sent by snail mail. And even failing that, there's always the option of blocking. The chip damage will be nasty, but now you've got Zam in a terrible position where he has to wait super long before making another move. If you're able to bait Zam into an attack you know you can dodge, then he's got nothing he can do but tank the abuse until he can try again. This is a game with a super fast air dash, so if you move up and over his attacks, Zam is already too committed to counter with his anti-air. While Big Zam does have an air dash, for whatever you'd want to use it for since it's not very useful, he doesn't have all of the game's basic mechanics. Big Zam can't block. The super armor makes it sting a little bit less, but standing there and tanking damage is not a winning strategy. Speaking of mobility, Zam also struggles hard with zoning. His attacks are far-reaching, but there are still dead zones and they are blockable. If you pepper him with shots that he can't respond to, he's gonna die sooner or later. That brings us neatly to the worst part of Big Zam, his dead zones. There are multiple spots on the screen that Big Zam is helpless at, and his best options are to abandon his standard game plan and play super unsafe. That long distance that the opponent is staying at should be susceptible to counter zoning, since 2 of his basic buttons are projectiles, but they're fixed projectiles. They only hit directly in front of him or directly above him. The Mega Special is an option, but if the opponent is too close or too high above you, it does nothing and leaves Zam to just get wailed on. Up close should be the worst spot to be in against Big Zam, but so few of his moves actually hit directly in front of him that at close or far range, Zam has huge spots that make him feel like a joke. These are all small potatoes, though. If all of these complaints were grains of sand, the next bit would be a desert. See, Big Zam is a boss character, just not a fighting game boss. His closest parallel isn't to Gil or Rugal or Shao Kahn, it's to Bowser from Super Mario Bros. All this area in front of him, dangerous, don't want to be there. Behind him, though, a rule in traditional fighting games is that both characters must be facing each other at all times. If you hop over or cross an opponent up, they snap back to look at whichever side you're facing. That's because if you didn't, the entire genre would die. If the opponent manages to get behind Big Zam, he won't turn back to face them, and instead stays looking forward. This turns off all but 2 moves from Zam, as the opponent is free to attack him like a punching bag. Those 2 moves, though, are really just one, as one of them is his homing missiles. They're strong, fast, and have tracking, meaning they go behind Zam and are able to hit opponents who jump over him. Except they're tied to the game's ammo system. Armors that utilize a weapon like Big Zam's missiles have a limited amount they can use per round, and if they run out, they can't use the attack anymore. The missiles are good, unless you run out. If you do, then Big Zam has only one option that can hit opponents behind him, a back kick. That back kick, though, has just as much wind-up as every other Zam move and makes it super easy to dodge. It's not like he's gonna try anything else! The missiles as well can be snuffed out by other projectiles and moves, so even the one good option for behind Zam to use is still really bad. Big Zam is the perfect example of what a fighting game letdown really is. He's got everything to draw in somebody casually looking at the roster. Hits hard, takes hits, and against a new player, he will be this unkillable monster. It only takes so long after starting, though, to find the weaknesses, and exploiting them defangs Big Zam into a novelty, a formality more than a character. I was told to mention the mass production of Big Zam. I don't know what that means, I just hope that you liked it. Okay, time to actually talk about Kamen Rider. I delay it again, but I'm afraid my door isn't that strong. We're back again to Super Climax Heroes, and despite covering nearly 20 different Kamen Rider series, we're still on Double. And in fact, we're still on Double. Last time we stopped by Climax Heroes, we talked about what I called the craziest character in fighting games, Kamen Rider Double. With his ability to swap between 9 different forms in the middle of a match, including swapping into the band character Luna Trigger, I assumed that would be the last we heard from Double for a while. All that's left in the series is Kamen Rider Excel and Eternal, but it turns out I've been wrong the entire time. Double doesn't have 9 forms, he has an additional 4 forms we still haven't covered. You could make a fighting game out of only Double forms and beat out some game's entire roster in terms of size. 2 of these forms are accessible back from base Kamen Rider Double, those being Cyclone Joker Extreme and Fang Joker. The first being his powered-up form using the Extreme memory, and the second being a new form using the Fang memory. The last one, though, actually brings things down to a more basic level, as when selecting Double, you can choose to forego the gimmick altogether and just fight as Kamen Rider Joker. This is a form 1/2 of Kamen Rider Double, Shotaro Hidari uses whenever his partner Philip is unavailable, using the Lost Driver that his mentor Skull used to use to go it alone. The gimmick of the form is that while Double gets access to all of his different abilities, Joker is allowed to use raw power. Instead of a staff or a gun or any type of weapon, he gets to punch really, really hard. This makes him less versatile, but without having to sync up all of his movements with Philip like he would when he's Double, Shotaro is able to be just as effective. This is all in the show, by the way, because translating that to gameplay was a total disaster. Joker doesn't get the same luxury that Big Zam got, where he at least got to look tough. Joker is shockingly weak for sharing all of his DNA with a bannable character like Double. The biggest change between Double and Joker is the loss of any Gaia memories, meaning no hot swapping between forms to fit the situation. No counter-zoning with Luna Joker, no shield breaking with Cyclone Metal. You're just stuck with the brawling Joker brought to the different combinations. This already makes for a confused character, since it doesn't really make sense with what Double was trying to do. The drawback to Double, aside from the pressure of having to decide which form was best at that moment, was that each form didn't exactly have a lot of depth. Your versatility in forms came at the expense of not being able to do a whole lot in each individual form. The most you'd have is a combo or two, and that was it. Labbing out what they can do, and a form like Heat Joker would get to do a basic string, rider cancel, and then get in one more hit. They were all purposefully left unfinished and not as robust as any other character. That's because you got 9 of them to play with at once. You were fine bumming it with just basic combos when you can do literally anything. So to make a character based on only one half of all of the Double forms is making a character who's starting at below 100%. He doesn't have nearly as much as any of the other characters do. Then comes the fact that of the 3 Shotaro memories, Joker is the worst one. Without a long-ranged option, like Metal or Trigger gave you, you're going to be at the mercy of the game's variety of zoners and projectile-focused characters. Look at a bunch of the banned characters. Support Agido, Garen, Drake, and of course, Skull and Luna Trigger. All of them possess unbeatable zoning that makes purely melee characters unusable. Speaking of those characters, a lot of characters who solely rely on physical attacks tend to rate quite lowly. And near the bottom of this bum class is Kamen Rider Joker. Joker's combo game for a brawler is really, really bad, and his attacks themselves are way slower than they need to be. His basic string is only 2 hits long. Not only are the attacks you throw out gonna feel sluggish and awkward, the ones that land aren't even going to be that satisfying due to how short they are. Bafflingly, they also made the choice to keep a key weakness of Double with Joker, that being the damage reduction. With the exception of Cyclone Metal, Double isn't a massive damage dealer. Best seen in Luna Trigger, who takes a really long time to win a game he can't lose. Instead of buffing Joker's attack to make up for his lack of any gimmicks, they didn't just keep it the same, they made it even worse. Those short, slow combos you gotta bum it with when playing as Joker don't even do a lot of damage, so you're gonna have to be landing loads of them over the course of a game to win. After playing as Joker for a while, I swapped back over to Double and tried out all the different Joker forms, and the difference is unbelievable. Attacks are so much faster, they string together more smoothly, they deal much higher damage, and the combos themselves are longer. You know what else you get for choosing this form over Joker? All of the other Gaia memories! Even if you want to be a punch pervert and only use the Joker forms, just pick Luna Joker and you can do it while on vacation. That's probably an important part to talk about. Joker exists because there will be some people who want to play as an honest brawler. No fancy tricks or gimmicks, just pure fisticuffs. Those are usually the makings of the coolest character on the roster, but let me ask you this. Do you have the right to complain if you bring a Matchbox card to a demolition derby? This is an aiding game. There are more banned characters than some fighting games have characters. Everybody's able to do some completely unfair gimmick that's only balanced by the opponent having something equally unfair. It's a race to the bottom to see who can crash their car into the opponent first. And out of all of the characters, you want the one whose gimmick is he punches people? Joker having absolutely nothing to make up for the lack of transformations just leaves me wondering what the point of adding him to the game was. You have a significantly worse, crippled version of one of the game's best and most interesting characters with nothing to make up for the difference. Either there would have to be massive improvements made to get across what, in lore, makes Joker such a powerhouse, or more likely, you just have to cut him all together. Can we move on to a new series next time? I want to try out Kamen Rider Amazon. I like him, he makes funny noises. Enough with the anime fighters, though. It's time to get to a real fighting game. Real, in this case, is subjective, based on your tolerance for Netherrealm. Mortal Kombat 9 was the big comeback for MK, after a divisive 3D era and a poorly received crossover with DC. MK9 re-established it as one of the big names in fighting games, and nowadays, when the current state of Mortal Kombat is as heavily scrutinized as it is, MK9 is looked back upon as a really solid fighting game. Not for lack of trying, though. Despite being hailed as the best modern MK game behind X, Mortal Kombat 9 is far from anything you could call balanced. At the top of the tier list is some of the most broken characters the series has ever seen, like Cyrax, Kenshi, and top-tier mainstay Kabal. Kabal has a winning matchup against Kabal. How do you beat that? However, a high is only as high as its lows are lows, and MK9 is at no loss for complete stinkers, crown jewel of which being Shiva. She earned every stomp she got in MK11 for having to go through this. Just above the very worst in the game, though, and you'll find my personal favorite MK character, Quan Chi. Debuting in the Mortal Kombat Saturday morning cartoon, before appearing in Mythology's Sub-Zero, and then finally getting into a fighting game with MK4, Quan Chi from the word go has a lot going for him. A cool design mixed with lore importance made him seem right at home alongside the other villains. Having to stand next to Shao Kahn and Shang Tsung is no small task, but Quan Chi pulls it off. That's not even mentioning his fatalities, and that's on purpose.
Papa! Papa!
Said Quan Chi.
When can I go to the zoo and see the giraffes, Papa?
No, son of father of Quan Chi, father of son of father of Quan Chi said. You will never see the giraffes. You must go to beat a guy to death with his own leg class. After his father passed away in a tragic beaten to death with his own leg accident, Quan Chi decided if he could not see the giraffes, he would simply make them himself. How do you have the best and worst fatality in the series at the same time? Despite being around for so long, Quan Chi would only be making his 2D playable debut in Mortal Kombat 9. Every other game he's been in has been 3D, and only certain things would translate from stuff like Deception and Deadly Alliance into these new games. No stance switching or anything like that. We're pretty much starting over from zero. Among the things taken for Quan Chi would be his special moves, like the Skull Toss and Sky Drop, alongside the introduction of brand new specials that are so quintessentially Quan Chi that finding out they were introduced this late was shocking. Quan Chi's biggest new addition in Mortal Kombat 9 was Trance, a move that forced the opponent to walk towards you, leaving them open for combos as well as restanding them out of the air. The other specials included a new skeleton buff, which either gave Quan Chi more health or increased damage, alongside Rune, a pillar-type projectile that Quan Chi could use at various distances. Trance and Rune would build the backbone of Quan Chi's playstyle. The plan was this: do a normal bread and butter combo, ending in Trance. After Trance, launch 2 runes that intentionally miss. This is to build up meter until the bar is totally filled. Once it's all full, you get the opponent into a block string before hitting Enhanced Rune. Enhanced Rune is an unblockable 10% of your life, which stuns the opponent for just long enough that when they recover, Quan Chi can start a new combo. It's not fast enough, though, that the opponent can't block during it, which is where the technique gets its name, Rune Trap. By blocking, they start the cycle over again of block string, enhanced rune, block string, enhanced rune, which altogether manages to do over half your health through runes and chip damage alone. Mix that with the combos you did to get your meter, and you're looking at an easy round win through a nearly inescapable trap. Without push blocks or parries, the only guaranteed way to escape Rune Trap was burning 2 bars of meter to do a combo breaker, which isn't always guaranteed, and doesn't put a permanent stop to the problem. This is the Quan Chi playstyle in MK9. You go for Rune Trap, or you're setting up Rune Trap. That's because it's not up to much else. Like I said, Quan Chi rates super lowly on tier lists, kept from embarrassing tiers by virtue of just how bad the worst characters are. But he's still in the bottom 5. Aside from Rune Trap, Quan Chi's got nothing. If you're trying to win with him, it's Rune Trap or bust. No impressive combos or big damage outside of this one gimmick. That being his only gimmick makes the Quan Chi matchup really easy. You're never going to guess what option he's going for next because, surprise, surprise, it's Rune Trap again. And by planning around it, you invalidate a lot of what he's trying to do. He can pester you with his fireball, or maybe go for a skydrop when you don't expect it, but single hits are not going to win the round. And there are characters who can use those moves, but better. Trying to stake a claim to be a zoner in a game where Kenshi exists is just not gonna happen. The best you can shoot for in terms of variety is setting up Rune Trap, starting the loop, and then just doing something else, like going for a mix-up during the block string. Since it's Quan Chi, it's not the most threatening thing, but it is something else to do. There's also the matter of how Rune Trap is a very meter-hungry game plan. By using it, you have to spend the start of the round building up the meter you need and then executing the plan flawlessly. Any wasted meter on the road to rune trapping is catastrophic, since getting that guaranteed damage over the course of the loop is how Quan Chi wins the game. Reminder though, that the meter is used for everything from enhancing moves to combo breakers and your X-ray, the other universal option Quan Chi has to cash out a lot of meter into damage. Doing the rune trap means locking yourself out of breakers or enhanced moves until you can fully commit to rune trap. The self-gimping is something the other characters in the game are going to be very interested in, since hearing Quan Chi isn't interested in breaking combos gives them free reign to combo the hell out of him. Characters like the previously mentioned god tiers, as well as Smoke, Sonya, and Kung Lao, are happy to give Quan Chi all the meter he needs by beating him senseless. Worst of all is what Quan Chi actually gets once he wins a round. You pull off the trap flawlessly, and now you're up a creek. All of your meter is gone, and you have to build it back up from nothing, without the meter you start the game with, or the extra 1 bar that you get from landing first hit. This can lead to a lot of Quan Chi round 2s to get burned for the meter regain, so they can rune trap properly on round 3. Tell me, does any game plan where you forfeit a round sound like one that works? Despite his low-tier status, and general failure to do anything but rune trap, there are a few dedicated players who try to make Quan Chi work. No doubt the biggest is Insuperable, a high-ranking MK player who, despite playing better characters like Liu Kang and Scarlet, is a dedicated Quan Chi main. Watching Insuperable footage shows just how good Quan Chi can be when the rune trap is allowed to go off. But despite that, you also get to see how much of a struggle that process really is. You have to fight for every win with Quan Chi, and in a game where other characters can breeze through rounds, it's just not enough. And then he was top tier in MKX for like ever. Our final character takes us to a game I was shocked to find out had as little documentation as it does. But considering the sentiment around it, I can't say it was that surprising. Castlevania Judgment is the fighting game spin-off of Konami's popular franchise, the one that really put the Vania in Metroidvania. Released in 2008, Judgment was supposed to be a crossover, taking characters from all across the franchise's massive timeline to fight in a bid to be the one to kill the Time Reaper and save time itself. A perfectly standard crossover setup. The execution, though, is where a lot of people soured. First off, as a Wii exclusive, a lot of people didn't gel with the motion controls. Despite having the option for a GameCube or Pro controller, A lot of people who only had Wiimotes found it to be a pain to control. The camera was among the biggest gameplay complaints, as it wasn't fixed or zoomed out enough to give you a look at the whole stage. Instead, it would get caught on everything and obscure the action, which, I don't need to tell ya, isn't good for a fighting game. The other big sticking point were the radical redesigns the cast went under. Character designs in Judgment were done by Death Note author Takeshi Obata, and there were some wild haymakers. Simon's design clearly draws heavy inspiration from his Chronicles incarnation, with the red hair and minimal clothing. Eric was aged down 10 years into a child from his Bloodlines version, and Maria took more from her anime art style appearance in Rondo of Blood than her Symphony of the Night version. The roster has a lot of swings and just as many misses. Personally, I think this version of Death is the worst he's ever looked, but I push back on the idea that this isn't Castlevania's style. Main point is that Castlevania has rarely had a defined style. Look at these three pieces from the same franchise and tell me there's ever been a single defined look of what Castlevania should be. I even think that Obata's designs are a neat take on the Symphony of the Night style artwork done for the series by Ayumi Kojima. Not to mention, it gave us the best goddamn design in the series, motherfucking Cornell in werewolf armor! That's so cool! Despite the game's problems, I didn't have a bad time with Judgment at all. It takes some time to appreciate, but the game does try a lot of unique stuff, including a castle mode where you run through various challenges with damage retention. A really cool take on mission mode. Like I said though, the game isn't very well covered, so finding resources for combos or tier lists isn't very easy. However, it'll only take a few games to realize the game's most exciting character is also its most disappointing. Most of the characters included in Judgment have been playable at some point in the series. The Belmonts, Shinoa, Cornell, the Castlevania 3 crew. With the obvious exception of the monster characters and Aeon, we've played as all these guys before. When it comes to playable characters though, there's one we've never gotten: Dracula himself. Don't even try me, you know what I mean! The key focus of every Castlevania game, present or not, Dracula is Castlevania. He's only ever been a boss character, I mean it! So the chance to play as him is something fans have wanted for a really long time. Discounting Dead by Daylight, this is the only time Dracula's ever been a playable character, and the pressure was on to get it right. As far as the basics go, it's not that bad. Dracula's moves take inspiration from his most famous fights across the series, with the biggest inspiration being his appearance in Symphony of the Night. Instead of a normal jab, Dracula has a spread shot fireball that, instead of comboing, can remotely detonate to make fire traps that deal extra damage. This sets the tone for Dracula, and I don't quite know how to feel about it. He's a trap master, peppering the stage with hazards like a landmine and slow-moving energy spheres that control space. The problem is, I don't exactly know why he's controlling it. Usually a trap master has something they're trapping you into, making you move in a way that you don't want to so they can exploit it. Dracula doesn't really have that, aside from wanting to use his directional combo that launches the opponent and deals tons of damage. That's only really useful, though, right in front of Dracula, which is where you're gonna be placing the landmine, so if they get past the rest of what you're able to do, you can counterattack. It leaves Dracula feeling kind of aimless. There's nothing you're working towards like Cornell's Wrath state. You're just throwing out projectiles with no grand plan. No big move you're setting up for, because all your moves are big moves. Given his pool of projectiles isn't exactly deep either, it makes playing Dracula really boring. You're spamming the same few moves over and over, teleporting away from danger, and it never really feels like much of a competition. It's mind-numbing. If this were it, I'd say that Dracula was already a really disappointing character based on how lame his gameplay feels. The only time I'd say any of these characters were out-and-out boring. Luckily, he's also bad at a lot of stuff, so he doesn't get out without his fair few shots. First is the same problem as Big Zam. Dracula is a massive, slow-moving punching bag who has to tank abuse because his movement options are so bad. He has his teleport, but aside from that, his movement speed is pathetic. Crawling is too good to describe it. That means the more agile characters are able to get past the traps and wail on him up close. If he gets trapped himself, he's kind of screwed, since his only close-range option is that directional combo, and it's not fast. A Dracula caught out will often get looped over and over, thanks to his slow moves and inability to get out of danger. This lack of physical offense and trouble handling up-close pressure leaves Dracula feeling really weak, which is the last thing you want from Dracula. This is also less of a major problem, but Dracula as an evil character gets locked out of the game's best sub-weapons. Where good guys get access to axes, holy water, and crosses, evil characters get a swarm of bats and a poisonous cloud. Not nearly as good. Not like it would help that much, since Dracula combos don't exist and therefore can't be extended by the sub-weapons. It's just another miserable feature of the character. For being his only playable appearance in the series proper, Dracula is a huge letdown of a character. A boring zoner who has you chasing a goal he doesn't understand. I'd love to say there's something special here, but unfortunately, what you see is what you get.